is JD with a new edition of Tuesday's News Pills. Please do like, share and subscribe to my channel. A new study says that if fast charging networks are built for trucks, then they can beat diesel in terms of cost. When it comes to pure electric vehicles, Western Europe is the global hotspot with over 700,000 battery-operated cars sold in 2020 itself. But it is a different story when moving heavy freight. For climate change, this is an important issue. While Tesla and other manufacturers have taken small steps into this market, critics argue that they will struggle to be cost competitive with diesel. A new study from the Stockholm Environment Institute say that fast charging and not bigger batteries is the key to commercial competition for large-scale electric lorries. With heavy goods transportation focused on main roads, ports, and terminals, it's likely that a smaller number of chargers would be required than it's needed for electric cars. Governments concerned about climate change might be the best place to provide incentives in this area, say experts. Las Vegas, a desert city built on a reputation for excess and indulgence, wants to become a model for restraint and conservation with a first-in-the-nation policy banning grass that nobody walks on. The Southern Nevada Water Authority estimates there are almost 8 square miles of non-functional turf in the metro area, grass that no one ever walks on or otherwise uses in street medians, housing developments and office parks. They say this ornamental grass requires 4 times as much water as drought-tolerant landscaping like cactus and other succulents. By ripping it out, they estimate the region can reduce annual water consumption by roughly 15% and save about 14 gallons per person per day. Tech comedians are poking fun at their employers, drawing big following. When Alexis had to present second quarter result to her team on a Zoom video call. The second quarter of 2020 was one of the worst hit years for many tech companies. As a senior manager at San Francisco-based digital company Patreon, Gay knew colleagues were still learning how to work remotely while the country was in crisis. Gay grew up wanting to be an actor but found herself 7 years into a tech job where she fully leaned into the industry's hustle culture. Before her meeting, she made a satirical video depicting how she would approach a team. Her video immediately got tens of thousands of likes. Gay is not the first to make the leap to a comedy career. Sarah Cooper, a former Google user experience design lead, found huge success after she filmed a satirical commentary about what it's like to work at Google and at a big tech company. In 2020, she landed a Netflix deal for her own show, Sarah Cooper, Everything's Fine. And in March 2021, CBS ordered a pilot for a show based on her book, How to Be Successful Without Hurting Men's Feelings. Josh Ogundu, a product operation lead at TikTok and a startup advisor mentor at Accelerator Tech Start, LA cohort, makes videos about the reality versus expectation of working in tech. San Francisco-based Hallie Lomax sought a similar kind of honesty. A lift engineer who has worked at various Silicon Valley tech companies, the 27-year-old started a digital comic strip called At Work Comics, which she describes as moments with people I am paid to talk to. Rod Till, a 30-year-old sales worker for an e-commerce logistics company, saw his social media following explode to millions of followers in October 2020 after posting about Silicon Valley's grind culture and the stresses of feeling inadequate during a time when workers cannot read their boss's expressions. Thiel's breakout video came when he described millennials working with the irrational fear they are going to get fired. I'm a pretty stellar employee and still feel like I will get fired for no reason, he said. As the US economy rebounds from its pandemic slump, a vital cog is in short supply. The computer chips that power a wide range of products that connect, transport, and entertain us in a world increasingly dependent on technology. The shortage has made it difficult for schools to buy enough laptops for students forced to learn from home, delayed the release of popular products such as the iPhone 12, and created mad scrambles to find the latest video game consoles such as the PlayStation 5. In recent weeks, particularly in the auto industry, factories are shutting down because they aren't enough chips to finish building vehicles that are starting to look like computers on wheels. The problem was recently compounded by a grounded container ship that blocked the Suez Canal for nearly a week, choking off ships headed for Asia to Europe. These snags threaten to leave a big dent in the auto industry, which by some estimates stands to lose $60 billion in sales during the first half of this year. The pandemic prompted chip factories to start shutting down early last year, particularly overseas where most of the processes are made. By the time they started to reopen, they had backlog of orders to fill. That would not have been as daunting if chip makers weren't then swamped by unforeseen demand. For instance, no one entered 2020 expecting to see a spike in personal computer sales after nearly a decade of steady decline. But that is what happened after government lockdowns forced millions of office workers to do their jobs from homes while students mostly attended their classes remotely. Both Sony and Microsoft were preparing to release highly anticipated next generation video games consoles for their PlayStation and Xbox brands, respectively, that required more sophisticated chips than ever. To add to the demand, wireless network providers are clamoring for chips to power ultra-fast 5G services being built around the world. Stay-at-home orders drove a surge in consumer electronic sales, squeezing auto parts suppliers who use chips for computers that control gas pedals, transmissions, and touchscreens. Chip makers compounded the pressure by rejigging factory lines to better serve the consumer electronics market, which generates far more revenue for them than autos. Samsung Electronics, one of the world's biggest chip maker, recently warned that its vast lineup of consumer electronics could be affected by the shortage. Intel, which for decades has dominated the market for PC chips, recently made waves by announcing plans to invest $20 billion in 2 new factories in Arizona. Even more significant, Intel revealed it is starting a new division that will enter into contracts to make chips tailored for other firms in addition to its own processors. That's a major departure for Intel, aligning it more closely with a model popularized by Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company or TSMC, which already had been building a plant in Arizona too. Compelled by the current shortage, TSMC also has committed to spending $100 billion during the next 3 years to expand its worldwide chip manufacturing capacity. Microsoft is in advanced talks to acquire speech recognition company Nuance Communications. A person familiar with the discussions told CNBC on Sunday. Microsoft considered buying the US operations of video sharing app TikTok last year, and last month it completed the $7.5 billion acquisition of video game maker Zenimax. Nuance would be more aligned with a part of Microsoft business that serves businesses and governments. Nuance drives revenue by selling tools for recognizing and transcribing speech in doctor's visits, customer service calls, and voicemails. The company reported $7 million in net income, or about $346 million in revenue in the fourth quarter. Nuance was founded in 1992. World shares were lower on Monday as investors grew wary over the recent surge in coronavirus cases in many places while vaccination efforts are making scant headway. Shares fell in London, Paris, Tokyo, Shanghai. US futures also slipped. The decline followed a strong end last week on Wall Street, where gains in technology and healthcare stocks pushed the S&P 500 and Dow Jones Industrial Average to fresh record high. A moderation in bond yields has helped restore confidence that the Federal Reserve will move soon to raise interest rates to keep inflation in check as the economy recovers from the shocks of the pandemic. The Iron Man body armor many of us may soon be wearing. Such technology, more specifically called an exoskeleton, sounds like the preserve of the Iron Man series of superhero movies. Yet, the equipment is increasingly being owned in real life around the world. And one manufacturer, California's SuitX, expects it to go mainstream. There is no doubt in my mind that these devices will eventually be sold at hardware stores, says SuitX's founder Humayun Kazeruni. As the prices come down, you will be able to simply buy them at Home Depot. In simple terms, an exoskeleton is an external device that supports, covers, and protects its user, giving greater levels of strength and endurance. Sometimes also referred to as wearable robots, they can be battery powered and computer operated, incorporating motors and hydraulics. Or they can be more simple passive designs that use springs and dampeners. Integrating humans and machines into one system opens up a new realm of opportunity, says Adrian Sprague, an expert on the technology at management consultancy Accenture. Many of the early applications have been focused on military and medical applications, but in the last several years, there's been an explosion of use in range of cases. This expansion which has come together with rapid advances in the technology, has seen exoskeletons increasingly used by manufacturing workers. Versions for consumers are also now being developed to help people more easily do everything from DIY to walking, climbing stairs, and other daily activities. One report says sales are now due to rocket as a result. SuitX suits are now being tested by car manufacturers General Motors and Fiat. Professor Kazeroni, who is also the director of the University of California's Berkeley Robotics and Human Engineering Laboratory, says that the primary benefit of the firm's exoskeletons is to prevent muscle fatigue. We have shown that muscle activity in the back, shoulder, and knees drops by 50%, he says. If muscle activities drop, that means the risk of muscle injury is less. This means that factory or plant managers get more productivity. Their insurance costs are lower and there are less work days lost to injury. There's less cost and more productivity. General Motors is also looking at a battery-powered exoskeleton glove developed by Swedish firm BioServo. These gloves, called the Iron Hand, has sensors and motors in each finger, which automatically responds to the level of force that the wearer applies to his or her hand when lifting or gripping something. The glove, therefore, takes up some of the strain. BioServo says it can increase the wearer's hand strength by 20% for extended periods. Jason Cottrell, the chief executive of MyPlanet, a Canadian software firm that has conducted surveys on the use of exoskeletons, says the world is only just beginning to understand the potential for exoskeleton technology. The Iron Hand app allows the user to adjust how strongly the glove reacts to his or her hand movement. The implications are, in a word, enormous, he says. Labor-intensive industries like manufacturing and agriculture have always depended on workforce that must endure a certain level of physical exhaustion and risk. Devices that support a person's frame while doing their job will fundamentally change how the industries run. As an example of other possible applications, Mr. Cottrell points to Delta Airlines, which announced last year that it was testing a full-body exoskeleton made by Utah-based Sarcos Robotics. The powered suit, which is being tried out by Delta freight handling, maintenance and ground support staff, can lift weights up to 90 kilos for 8 hours at a time. And what about a server in a restaurant? Adds Mr. Cottrell. How could they benefit from a device that helps support the arm that carries the tray? The most advanced exoskeletons use artificial intelligence, computer systems, software that can, to a certain extent, learn and adapt by itself. Professor Sandra Wachter, a senior research fellow in AI at Oxford University, says that such bodysuits are to be welcomed, but with some caution too. In general, I see this development as very positive for occupational health and safety, she says. Machines are supposed to help us with dull, dangerous, and dirty jobs. Robotics that protect your shoulders, your back, and head, for example, when you are picking up or moving things, is crucial. This is exactly one of the exciting benefits of robotics. Problems, however, arise if robotics also doubles as workplace surveillance. Are these suits tracking your movement, how fast you move, and how often you take a break? Does a system compare these data with those of other workers to score or rank them? What happens if you move slower than others or take breaks more often? Now, however, more widespread adoption of exoskeleton technology is still held back by several factors, including battery capacity, limited range of motion, and cost. The average cost of a full body exoskeleton is around US dollar 45,000, says Accenture's Mr. Sprague. However, with economies of scale and technological maturity, prices will come down. SuitX is now testing a knee brace aimed at walkers and hikers. SuitX's Professor Kazeroni says that falling prices will also open up the possibility to tap into a potentially huge market, recreational exoskeletons. His firm is now working on such a device that supports the wearer's knee. It's not only for people who are going climbing and hiking or young people who want to be more adventurous or for people who want to do more walking and climbing but not hurt their knees, he says. It will be for all ages. It's simply giving you a little boost. Thank you for watching. See you in my next one.